What's up guys, Coach Matt here, coming at you with pack 4 for Never Quit Sweat session. Today guys, you've got 2 little strength components. You've got 4 sets to start with of 10 ATG split squats, and then 10 tempo elevated heels goblet squats, and then 5 reverse Nordic curls. So your ATG split squats are much the same as last week, but if you didn't do last week's program, that's okay. So what we're trying to do here is start off with a nice long lunge, and you're trying to get your knee as far forward as possible whilst keeping that back leg nice and straight. So think about locking that knee out and pushing your hamstring up towards the sky, and then coming forward. And if your heel comes a little bit off the floor, that's okay. We're just really trying to get that quad down to that calf. So really trying to squeeze in there and then drive backwards. Now you guys can do this with weight. You can either use 2 dumbbells, one either side, or one, pop it on your shoulder, hold it however you want to. Just keep it nice and elevated. Come down into that squat, and then back up again. Moving on into your 10 tempo elevated heels goblet squats. Just gonna grab a plate. You guys can use whatever you like, whether it's a couple of books, a slab of wood, brick, or if you have a plate, even better. You want to have a minimum height of at least 1 inch, probably even more, but let's not go too high with that. Now we're popping our heels on that plate, putting our feet together, and then holding that dumbbell by the head, squatting down nice and low with the tempo, 3 seconds down, and then back up again. So 3, 2, 1, coming up. From the front, guys, making sure our knees don't come out like our normal squat. This will concentrate the movement a little bit more on the quads. Now guys, another tip there is to keep the dumbbell further away from your body. Now that will increase how much core activation you have. If you're resting it on your chest, that's okay. If it's a little bit heavier, but that does make it just that tiny bit easier. And your reverse Nordic curls, finding some space on the floor or a foam mat, and kneeling down. Now, as we did last week, the first level of this is to have your toes pointing into the ground. That does make this movement a lot easier. Your stance should be just about shoulder width between your heels and your knees. Make sure your hips are pressed forward and open up. Then you're going to lean back and then come up. Making sure you're not sitting down on your heels like this and bending at the hips. We're trying to keep that nice straight open angle. Now to increase the difficulty on that, tops of your feet pressed against the floor. This will increase the range and depth to make it more challenging. Now as you guys go through these, feel free to increase the range and get a little bit deeper as you guys are moving through these and mobilizing a little bit more. After that, guys, you've done your 4 sets. We're then going into 2 sets of 16 double dumbbell lunges and 6 kneeling jump box jumps. So re-angling that camera so you guys can see. Your double dumbbell lunges, pretty straightforward stuff. 2 dumbbells, nice long stride, knees to the floor, hang those dumbbells by the side. And that's all there is to it, but there's 16 reps, so make sure we're going for quality here and you don't get lazy halfway through. If you only have 1 dumbbell, pop it on your shoulder, hang it by the side, pop it behind the neck, whatever you're comfortable with. Just making sure those lunges are weighted. Moving on into your kneeling jump box jumps. Guys, this is just to improve your explosive power in jumping, which will transfer into your Olympic lifting and other movements. So if you don't have a box, that's okay. You can use a chair or a bench or something else that's nice and sturdy. Starting off in a kneeling position, sitting back, arms come backwards so that we can convert that power into a jump, and then jumping straight up onto the box. So it should be nice and snappy and fast. Coming up into the knees, up into the box. And again, if you don't have a box, what you could do as an alternative option, jump off your knees and then a high jump. So you're really trying to get your knees up and out so that you can land in what looks like a power clean position or squat clean position. So you've got that depth, you've got that width, really working on that explosive power. All right, moving on with my mad camera angles today, sorry guys. Your WOD is 5 rounds per time, 10 dumbbell split snatches, 10 dumbbell overhead squat, and 10 handstand push-ups. So, definitely warm up your shoulders for this one. This is highly shoulder intensive. Your squats should be warm enough by now, but you really want to make sure your mobility is on point for this workout, especially if you've got a heavier dumbbell. All right, so with your dumbbell split snatch, kind of a combination of 2 movements. It's like your split jerk and a snatch. So the dumbbell needs to go from ground to overhead in 1 movement, but your footwork is really important here. So rather than your regular snatch, where your feet land in the same spot, you guys need to be landing in a split jerk position. So nice straight back leg, a little bit of a bend in the knee, and then 90-degree of the front foot. Now when you're doing this, guys, you've got to try and make sure your hand that's holding the dumbbell is the side of the leg that goes back. Because if you're doing it this way, you're crossing over your leg and you're causing all sorts of complications. So try and make sure when you go for the snatch, that if it's your right arm, then this leg is going to shoot backwards and this one's going to come forwards. And we're going to land in what we would land in with a power snatch, but with that split jerk. So making sure we pull that dumbbell up nice and close and dropping it underneath. And you guys can alternate sides as you feel, moving through those 10 snatches or split snatches. Your dumbbell overhead squat, guys. One tip I found really helpful for this one was to try and make sure you're holding towards the front of the dumbbell. See how I'm not holding the exact middle, I'm a little bit further forward. This will allow the weight to shift back a little bit further behind my body, so that when I am going through my overhead squats, adjust that angle so that you can see everything there. Just to make sure that that weight shifts behind me a little bit, because the second that weight starts coming in front of me, my balance starts shifting forwards in my squat, and I need every advantage I can to do these overhead squats. Now obviously this is quite a light dumbbell, but you can still see that weight is shifting backwards and helping me get into a locked out position with the arm. You really need to make sure that your bicep is to your ear from the side, if not behind. So making sure that weight is behind, not in front, because if it's in front, again, it's going to pull you forward in that squat. Quick side note, guys, if you are having a little bit of trouble getting into that range for your overhead dumbbell squats, skip to the end of this video. I've got a few little clips of some mobility movements that might help you get a better range on your squats. So guys, if you are struggling with those overhead dumbbell squats, what we can do is we can swap that movement out for something that is slightly different, but still similarly challenging. So you're gonna grab that dumbbell, pop it up overhead, but what you're gonna need is a book or a brick or a chunk of wood or a plate, and what you're gonna go through is dumbbell overhead lunges with an elevated front foot. What this does is it does make it a little bit more challenging for you, as it increases the depth at which you have to lunge, but you've still got that dumbbell overhead, but it's not quite challenging your mobility as much. We don't want you guys getting injured while we're doing these workouts. So if it is incredibly difficult for you and you can't quite get the depth on the squats, then sub your movement out for your elevated foot overhead lunges. Cool. Yo guys, working on a bit of mobility stuff for you guys to help you get into those overhead dumbbell squats. Even if you're not going to do them, it's still really important to make sure that our shoulders are prepped for the overhead position to keep everything nice and stable when that dumbbell's up there. So what we're going to start with is a couple of reps of lat rollout. So we're going to try and get our arm against that roller. We want to be working through this zone here. So laying on your side getting your lats in there, just rocking back and forth, really trying to mobilize those lats a little bit more. Following that, guys, if you do have a wall ball, what I find really helpful for overhead mobility is to go through a bit of a rollout where we're trying to get our arms up overhead, and we're just working at that midsection of our back. Now, something else that really increases range a little bit further is if you place a dumbbell behind and set up for that, and then you blindly look for that dumbbell, and depending on the weight of it, you can either use it to pull yourself down, or you can hold the weight and let it come back. Now, really be careful with this one. I want you guys to go through this quite slowly, because it can be quite intense, and really pull through that upper section of your back and your shoulders. Now, those are two movements that will really help you guys get into that lockout position. Good for your snatches, good for your overhead dumbbell squats and lunges. And our final movement, which is another good lat stretch, is to just come down onto your hands and knees. Place your arms in front of you, but we want to go thumbs up. So thumbs up there, and then we're going to try and get our head through our shoulders and sit our butt back. And really stretch out those lats even more. So I'm trying to drive my head down, press my hands into the floor, and push my butt back. Should really increase that upper arm range. Have fun.